Freedom from above is more influenced by the Word than the world. It loves my enemies because I no longer need anything from them. Not doing so is a symptom of slavery to injustice. How? Have more faith in God's grace than in your own sin. Don't let the consequences of your sin become bigger than the consequences of the cross. Giving doesn't come from a full storehouse, but from a full heart.
Thanks for joining us on Life Journeys, a podcast about thriving through the worst pain that life brings. With global initiatives threatening big changes to our way of life, we're going to need to activate Jesus' words about mountain-moving faith. Words That Work is the ongoing series on life journeys that is rooted in releasing revelational words of faith that will work every time and with everyone. It's about moving the mountains that keep us from the presence and goodness of God. It's about defining our life purpose and identity through encountering Him until we have the power to move the obstacles that are destroying our liberty and hope.
This is what life looks like from God versus life from the world. Jesus said, "But I say unto you which hear, love your enemies. Do good to them which hate you. Give to every man that asks of you, and of him that takes away your goods, don't ask for them back. And as you would that men would do to you, do also to them likewise." Jesus is showing us that this is the kind of a life that we can live when He is the determiner of our existence and blessing and happiness. The passage was written to people of faith. They're influenced more by the Word than the world. Their primary reality is above, where their life is hidden with God in Christ Jesus. And since their self-esteem, validation, and identity and well-being doesn't come from men in this world, they can't be threatened and manipulated by their enemies. There's nothing that the world can take from them that hasn't already been surrendered to God, for He has become their life, their supply, and their sufficiency. As a minister, there have been many battles where I've had to overcome deep inner pain. Every day was a battle to surrender to man what is man's, that I might attain what is God's. You see, this is part of the heart of giving blessing to bad actors in life. It's living by a totally different set of principles that determine how life really works. I can love my enemies when I no longer need anything from them. I can give to others what they can't pay back when God is my source of supply. I can bless those who have despitefully used me and then cast me aside. Giving only to get, working only to gain, loving only those who love you or who provide you with benefits or pleasure. Yeah, this is all living in unbelief. Faith neither gives or receives based upon merit or performance. Faith is based on mercy and grace alone. Watch this. If you love them which love you, what gratitude is coming your way? And if you do good to them which do good to you, what gratitude do you have? And if you lend to them of whom you hope to receive, what thanks have you? Sinners do this, but the word thank here is from the Greek word charis, meaning grace. What grace do you have if you only love those who love you? Now listen, God gives to us with no expectation of a return. That's part of what grace is and what it does. He doesn't love us only if we love Him back, do His will, and live for Him. He gives to all regardless of if they will turn and bless Him or not. Remember the 10 lepers that Jesus healed? Only one returned to give thanks, but they all were healed. Let me tell you something really important here. Not loving the unlovely, not showing mercy to the ungodly, and not giving to the selfish is a symptom of slavery. When we are provided for by someone, we become their servant. If the government supplies us, it becomes our master and it is able to manipulate and control us. The same is true of anyone around us whom we have given something to, either love or goods or services. If we need a return, we become a slave to something other than God, be it money, time, or selfishness. Now, this does not mean that if I graciously give something to someone that they become my servant, for it is clear that it is a grace gift with no expectation of return. God actually wants to give through us. By giving, the hearts of others are changed, and that's what God is after, a heart that begins to be motivated by faith. Again, talking about what it's like to live the life that is from above. Don't become a slave of injustice. Have more faith in God's grace than you have in your own sin, thereby not punishing yourselves with condemnation over your past failures. This means don't let the consequences of your sin become bigger than the consequences of the cross. Then you can begin to love and give by grace alone, because your heart is full. Don't allow your faith to be polluted by not trusting God to help you with your forgiveness and mercy towards those who don't deserve it. You giving grace to others won't hurt you. God is caring for you. Your actions of mercy prove your faith in His promises for you. Don't put conditions on others unless you want God to put conditions on you. God gives to you by your asking. So do the same. Live it by treating others how you would want to be treated were you in their situation. That's a good way to establish where your faith is truly at. Remember, faith is a condition of the heart of man. It is not merely a religious trick whereby God grants you your wishes. Giving, you see, comes from a full heart, not from excess money. Jesus said in Luke 6:38, "Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give unto your bosom. For with the same measure that you mete, it shall be measured to you again." Okay, the point is clearing up here. To love my enemies and to lend with no expectation of return, and to turn the other cheek requires that God is truly my God, my supply of love and joy, peace, hope, and life itself. This is a challenge that reveals the impossible lifestyle of being like Jesus. No man can rationally do this. It can only come from knowing how to receive life itself and all that daily entails from God alone. Anything else, and we have another God. Faith in God, by very definition, involves Him being the center of our life and our primary influence. With the measure you mete out to others, it shall be measured to you again. Why? Because it's a primary act of living your faith. Looking at this, I realize God is too often my God when it suits me. If I give out of my excess, then I can still rely on my own storehouse of supply. But when I give out of my own need, so that when I give, I shall face real lack in my life without Him, then I'm walking in real faith. Give, and it shall be given to you is not an earth principle that will work for any religion, nor is it merely a positive mental attitude that will naturally promise results because we think that's the way the world works. It doesn't. You give to the world and it takes. Period. This promise and principle that Jesus is sharing is an observation of faith where God Himself will supply the giver with His storehouse of running over blessings. Why don't we give with no expectation of return? Why don't we turn the other cheek? Why don't we love our enemies? We still want or need something from them, and we're angry because they're not giving it to us. We demand. We cry, unjust. Why? because we don't know God very well and we don't know how to find the fullness that comes from his glory and presence. We're too empty to give like this. You see, giving doesn't come from a full storehouse. It does come from a full heart. Here's what it looks like. And I'm not boasting here. I'm showing what happens when God breaks a man's heart so that he can fill it up with himself. A brother asked me for several $100s in a loan, which I immediately said he could have. All the while, the government was unjustly asking of me tens of thousands of dollars. A year ago, I saw a man begging for a handout for he and his family. I went home, got a $100 bill, drove back and gave it to him with no expectation of return from him or God. Yesterday, a woman we know was financially struggling. When my wife told me, I said, go give her this $100 bill. No expectation of a return. Why? Because my heart is full of the presence of God every day. I told my wife last night that I am just so happy. It's simply because of Jesus. When he fills the heart, heaven's storehouse is released to others. Have I gotten back from any of these people? No. But I've gotten back from God. Are men giving to me like the sack of wheat pressed down, shaken together, and running over? No, not by any means. But God is giving his tangible life every day. My heart is full. Am I special because I give once in a while? No. I'm just doing what any servant will do. Not because he has to, but because he gets to. Giving doesn't come from a full storehouse. It comes from a full heart. God will give back to me, not as a reward for my giving. It's not a transactional thing. He will give to me because he saw the faith. It's not faith that he will give back to me. It's faith in who he is that has filled my heart with the joy and consolations of heaven's love and glory. And let's be clear. If I give $100, it does not mean that someone will give me 2 or 5 or more. God will give me a blessing with no half-full bottles like you get at the store today, where it looks like we're getting more than we really are. He gives in such a way that we get more than it looks like we're getting. It's like the sack of grain, shaken, pressed down, and running over. That comes from a full heart, where we are influenced by God more than men of this world, more than injustice, and more than our own self-esteem.
You can unlock the presence of God in your life. There are revelation principles that remove the mountains, keeping us from joy, hope, peace, and purpose when our world gets turned upside down. Look for these words that work with Pastor Hardika as he shares what has helped him when life got hard. And don't forget to check out his book, The Fortress and the Firebrand, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for listening to Life Journeys. Find new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday.
Freedom from above is more influenced by the Word than the world. It loves my enemies because I no longer need anything from them. Not doing so is a symptom of slavery to injustice. How? Have more faith in God's grace than in your own sin. Don't let the consequences of your sin become bigger than the consequences of the cross. Giving doesn't come from a full storehouse, but from a full heart.